All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Be Real podcast. Today it's a little different because we don't have Suned and we don't have Jacob either, so the hosting duties are kind of falling on to me. So I have to do it. I'll try and do my best, but I'm not sure like I can get the same quality that they usually deliver. But I'll definitely try my best. So right now I have Sahil with me. Sahil, how are you doing? How are you overall?
Yeah, I mean, you always feel great after a Bernabeu night, like especially a Champions League night at the Bernabeu. And we got two late goals to win the game, so that was quite satisfying in itself. But overall, the game just went by like that. I mean, it had been a while since we watched a Champions League game at the Bernabeu, no? So I felt like the game just went by, and it was very end-to-end stuff. It's even like if somebody watched the game as a neutral, it was a very entertaining game, end-to-end stuff, really. But for us, in the end, we won via two very late goals, and overall, it's just not quite there again. But we're improving. That's the good thing.
Yeah,
From Sociedad and from Betis, it was definitely a level above. So
yeah. First of all, I'm pretty glad to hear the fact that you're doing well. So that's
yeah.
what good, and the fact that we won is always a plus, like you said. So I
Mhm.
mean, before we go on and well deeper into the game, I think we should do some housekeeping and talk about the people who are actually making this possible. And I don't mean Suned. I mean as much as Suned would want me to say, it is because of Suned. But yeah, I'm talking about the sponsors. So right now, I think we have two sponsors working with us. One's Manscaped, like everybody knows. Manscaped is the premier brand in men's grooming. Please make sure that you go to their website, the links in the description, and use the code LBR20. And once you use that, you'll get 20% off, and you would not believe it, but you'll also get free shipping. So make sure that you use that to your advantage and, buy some goodies, and that way you can also help us. And the second brand that we're working with is Fanatics. I mean, Fanatics needs no introduction. It's one of the biggest brands when it comes to apparel sales. You can go there and buy jerseys and a lot of other stuff. So make sure you use this link in the description. Once you use that, obviously we'll get some benefit. They'll see that viewers of ours are coming there and buying stuff, and they'll sponsor us more, and we can keep making more podcasts. So with that out of the way, I think now we should be getting into the game. Sahil, you already touched upon it, but I want to ask you this. I definitely want to get your opinions on this. How was your overall sensation post the game? Today, for me personally, like you said, we did improve a little bit, but then I saw the same issues happening over and over again. The things that I've pointed out on this podcast. I mean, we haven't had the chance to be together and talk about these things. So today is
Right.
definitely a good chance for us to add some new discussion, add some new spice to this debate of Real Madrid and how the season is going. So I want to know, what do you feel like? Were you satisfied with how we played today? Were you satisfied with the structure of the team? What was your feelings overall?
I don't think you can completely say that you're satisfied to the extent that you're watching a perfect Madrid team play, but it's never going to happen, is it? So, in phases of the game, it felt like we were playing proper like Rolls Royce football, especially in the second half. But it wasn't quite there again. I know Sunaid loves being overcritical on this podcast, and uh, I feel like from the Sociedad game, relative to that, I'm always going to assess our performances relative to our previous few games, right? Um, Likewise, our past few performances got judged on the basis of the games before that, Mallorca and whatnot. So I feel like based off Sociedad and before the international break, it was definitely a level above. Part of that is down to the number of players we had returning, and Chouameni and Jude Bellingham in that midfield just elevated our game today.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but for me, like I would like to point this out. Like I've discussed this before as well, but I would like to get your take on it as well. For me,
Yeah,
without Cruz, this team doesn't seem to be working, and I kind of felt like we took advantage of the fact that the game was pretty open, and
hmm
Stuttgart was going at us, and Stuttgart doesn't really have the same level of midfield control, or how do I say it, same level of sharpness in front of the goal that what some of the big teams might have. So
yeah,
I definitely saw, and I think Sunil in the chat and said that so Stuttgart definitely outplayed us. So I think there's an element of that, especially in the first half, especially in the first 30 minutes. And we kind of missed that Cruz kind of like controller, in the midfield. Somebody who can get the ball out, somebody who relieves the pressure, and even in the final third combines with guys like Vinicius and, maybe Mbappe, although we don't know what Mbappe would have done with Toni Kroos in the field. But we're definitely missing that element in our midfield these days. What is your opinion on that? Were you satisfied with how open the game was? Would you have liked to see more control, or do you think this is what we should be expecting going forward this season?
No, yeah, I agree on your assessment overall. It's just that the reasoning behind that isn't as simple as going, okay, we didn't have Cruz. We didn't have Cruz last. We had Cruz last season, and we still struggled to like get a whole foothold onto the game when we faced German teams, right? We faced Bayern and Leipzig, I believe, last season, and both of those games, I think both of them held us at the Bernabeu. We couldn't win. So it's a feature with German teams. They just come and they play very freely, and this lack of control today wasn't just down to there not being Cruz, but again, it's something we talk about over and over again. Uh, but potentially, you do see Aurelien Tchouameni replacing Cruz in that role, right? So as far as today goes, I felt like Tchouameni coming back into that midfield made a difference. And yes, the lack of control over games will always be felt, and it's always going to feel more than what it is as the season progresses. I don't know if that makes sense, but we're going to say Cruz's name. We're going to take Cruz's name again and again after every game that we either don't have enough control over, or either we don't win. So yeah, that's my overall assessment on that. I feel like it's not just Cruz. Stuttgart played an amazing game. In fact, they probably deserve to win as much as we did based on their performance alone. It's just that their clinical their finishing side of things wasn't clinical enough. And on another day, you could have been seeing very different like scoreline, but you say that time and again with Real Madrid. So
Yeah, I think that is the fact. That is the factor that worries me a little bit because we're lacking this midfield control, and we always I don't know, like these days we simply struggle to get the ball out. And once that
yep,
happens, I think Real Madrid are definitely struggling, and I think that is going to come and haunt us in the big games. And it's already haunting
yep,
us against teams that kind of sit back. I think you made an excellent point about Leipzig and all the German teams that we played last season, and we kind of did seem to struggle a little bit. But then I think with Leipzig, I have a little bit of different opinion because Leipzig plays a style that I don't think really fit. If like Real Madrid aren't built to combat that style, especially their high press, that ability to win the ball higher. And I think this season is going to be an even bigger uphill task if Real Madrid come across a team like that. I think it's interesting that we're going to face a team like Salzburg that probably plays in that prototype. So I am kind of looking forward to see how that game goes because I've always felt like Salzburg are like a mini version of Leipzig, maybe not as good, maybe a 50% or 40% as good, but good nonetheless. So I think we will see how Real Madrid deal with it. And I think lacking Cruz, lacking a player who can take the pressure off of defenders, I think that's definitely an area that Real Madrid are sorely going to miss when they go into the big games. And I think teams like Salzburg are definitely going to exploit that. I'm also worried a little bit about how we're going to face off this Barcelona team because, whenever the Barcelona's feature has always been high pressing, winning the ball further up and, starving the opponents out of possession. And City play the same way. So those games worry me a little bit. And, if this is how we're going to be, if this is how open we're going to be, I think I kind of want to see how the season progresses. But for now, I am not satisfied. I mean, I don't want to be Farouk and say, be overly critical, but then I think Farouk definitely has a point when he says that this Real Madrid team has been not playing well, but still winning, maybe last couple of games. So I think this is an area we definitely need to improve on, and I think you also touched upon the fact that it's going to happen as the season goes on. But do you
yeah.
think Kamavinga coming in maybe fixes it?
It doesn't completely fix it, no, but it offers us another option in the context that um, on a day like this, or in a game like against Atletico, which is coming up, right? You might need somebody to run at the opposition. You might need somebody to cover the hard yards. Kamavinga can do that off the bench or starting, but like it's not going to fix the problem. Like Kamavinga isn't Cruz. Even Bellingham is not Cruz. So these players, they offer us a level of dynamism that will um, like change our approach in a way, but it won't revert back to how it was under Cruz. Like even today, you saw Stuttgart had 53% possession in the first game, in the first half. I don't know how much it was by the end of the game. Probably lesser, but definitely seemed to struggle a lot more in the first halves of games to, like, really get control over the game.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you have a point about us being poor starters because this team has been there throughout the season, and I've struggled to think back of a goal that we scored in the first half. I think it was only against Mallorca that we got a goal in the first half and Rodrigo scored. Apart from that, I think most of the goals have come in the second half, even against Atlanta, if I'm not wrong, in the Super
Yep.
Cup. We scored in the second half, and I think today as well, all four goals came in the second half, like for both teams. But then, enough sad stuff. Enough talking about how depressing the season is gonna be. Let's get on to some of the brighter points. What today did you feel the
Absolutely.
team did well?
The team did well. Okay. So let's start from the midfield, because the midfield we saw two players that weren't there against Sociedad, right? And two players that we've missed in the past 2 weeks. So Chouameni, for one, I felt like screening the back four and like just maintaining that solid presence in defensive midfield. He did a great job at that. And another aspect of that position is to again have that distribution, and you have uh, you know help circulate the position. And he's not quite there again, but we saw signs, we saw glimpses of that when he gave that pre-assist to Rodrigo, the ball that he plays over to Rodrigo for Mbappe's goal. That to me was a sign of improvement and a sign that things in training are going according to how Ancelotti sees him fit into this role. So that was very positive in my eyes, at least. And Bellingham, of course, in terms of the dynamism and just his pressing, his constant ability to like change the flow of the game. Today, that was there in the first half. I don't know if he influenced the game as much in the second half. That was probably because he just wore himself out, and he was just returning from injury. And I'm happy he got subbed off. But his pressing, his link up play, his final pass, all of that was there. I just would have loved to see him get a shot on goal or like make a late run on a counter attack, and maybe he would have ended up with a goal that way. But we know he's playing a different role this season than last season, so probably not a fair expectation. But
Uh,
yeah, the midfield was just it was electric in some parts of that game. Uh, Not quite hitting, but yeah.
it's kind of funny that you highlighted the midfield after all the midfield bashing that we did in the opening segments. But I mean, you definitely have a point. I think individually, all the midfielders kind of seem to step up. What I
Mm.
think is missing is the fact that coming together, all these parts working together in synchrony, in harmony. You might say
Mm.
that is something that I feel that is missing for this Real Madrid team. But you made an excellent point about the fact that we kind of got glimpses of maybe what Ancelotti is trying to do. Because even in the second half, I remember seeing certain phases of play where we kind of had a step ladder kind of a build up, where Chouameni plays into Valverde and then Valverde plays into Bellingham. So it kind of went into a zigzag pattern. So
Yeah,
I kind of get glimpses of what maybe Ancelotti is trying to do, and there were some patterns. So that's always heartening. You always want to see
yeah,
something that can be repeated over and over again. But then all we have to wait for now is like for these things to come together. And apart from that, I also felt like Rodrigo was pretty brilliant today. I mean, in the first half,
mm,
it kind of felt like he was the
true.
most exciting attacker that we had. What do you make of Rodrigo's performance today? Especially given the fact that there were calls to drop him for the game.
Yeah, he always has a point to prove in this 11, doesn't he? It always seems like he's the first one to get slaughtered for not for like uneventful attacking performance, but which should not be the case, because again, like he showed us today, he is in terms of chance creation game. But Rodrigo's just running up and down the right wing, and he's always covering up for his right back, and he's coming into the middle to link up play, which is always exciting to me because Rodrigo coming in centrally. We saw how he created Mbappe's first goal at the Bernabeu, right?
Yeah,
Uh, and Vinicius doesn't do that often enough these days. He used to in the days of Benzema. It's just he's stopped coming in and you know cutting into his right foot.
Uh-huh.
But Rodrigo, apart from his like end product, I feel like he had a good game. He had a good first half,
Yeah,
if anything.
definitely. For me personally, I was like, I kind of was disappointed when Ancelotti decided to take him off instead of maybe one of the other two. And I kind of see a comment from, I think it's Milan. I hope I'm getting your name right. It says Mbappe and Vini should be ashamed of themselves. Great for 60 minutes by Rodrigo, who has been doing well compared to the French Lukaku and Brazilian 2015 Benzema. Endrick is a star and needs more
And
minutes.
Mbappe was still all right. Mbappe was still all right.
Yeah, I mean, we are gonna get into the
Yeah, yeah,
Brazilian 2015 Benzema and maybe French Lukaku later on. But yeah, for Rodrigo, I think this is a point well made, right? 60 minutes of some brilliant football. Shame that he got subbed off, and I think the team kind of scored the two goals that won us the game immediately after he left. So maybe
yeah.
looking back, everybody's like, "Oh man,
He
maybe."
set the first goal on the platter for Mbappe.
Definitely, definitely. So there was some positive contributions from him, and I think Rodrigo. I hope he builds on this. It kind of maybe sends a message to people who are saying on social media, who are being overly critical. I mean, I understand certain criticism because you like you said, he was a little bit off the mark when it when it came to his finishing, and he definitely needs
Yeah,
to improve on that area. So that is one area, like you said, he needs to improve on. So certain criticism I get, but when you start being overly critical about Rodrigo or anybody else, you kind of lose me there. But point, like we're talking about the two goals that came after Rodrigo left, that eventually won us the game. But I think
yeah.
we can keep Endrick's goal for later, but we have to talk about Rudiger's goal. To those who don't know, this is Rudiger's fifth goal for Real Madrid, and I think a lot of these goals that Rudiger has scored have been pretty key ones. And I remember that one assist. I think was it the assist or was he the scorer against? No, it was Joselu who scored, but then I think Rudiger gave the assist
He assist.
for the Bayern win. But yeah, I mean Rudiger overall performance, and what did you think about the goal that he scored today?
His goal, obviously, that's just vintage Rudiger, right? He comes up above on the cross and puts it right where it needs to go. And the cross itself was just, it was laid out on a silver platter again. Luka Modric coming off the bench. You need that sort of impact from a player off the bench. And you just saw he wasn't his usual self when he started that game against Sociedad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but Rudiger himself, I mean, apart from that dive for the penalty, sort of, which would have earned him a yellow card on another day, uh, yeah, I felt like his positioning was great, especially considering at times in the first half he was the lone centre back because Carvalho simply forgot that he was supposed to play as the right centre back, and he drifted off way to. And again, that's not to fault Carvalho; he's not a centre back, right? But Rudiger had to do a lot of the defending in the first half alone, and we clearly struggled in the first half, right?
Yeah,
Coming back, goal, yeah,
yeah.
and Stuttgart just didn't put away the chances, or Courtois just saved us. There's multiple ways of looking at it.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, we definitely have to talk about Courtois' brilliant performance because this man keeps pulling them out of their hat. I don't know, like he's
yeah, man
probably,
of the match.
yeah, he probably has a storage somewhere where he keeps all these good games, and whenever the team needs it, he just pulls out one of those. But I mean, sticking with Rudiger, for me personally, I kind of felt like like the point you mentioned. In the first half, I think the makeshift defense that we went in, and we definitely have to talk about the makeshift nature of the defense, and how the players that came in performed. But Rudiger, for me, he kind of rolled back and went back to last season, and he became the one man defender that he was last season, and he rolled back the months, maybe not years, but he definitely rolled back the months, and he showed us why. At least last season, I felt he was the best defender in the world. So for me, an excellent performance from Rudiger, and the cherry on top is the fact that he got the goal. But then we definitely have to talk about the makeshift nature of the defense. Like I said, what do you think about it, and who do you like? Was this something you expected? I mean, definitely a lot of people were expecting this situation to pop up when we decided not to sign a center back, when Lenny Euro decided that he's not coming to Madrid, he's going to United instead, and
And
the whole
our academy centre back, John Martinez, he
yeah.
picked up an injury.
Yeah, he got an ACL injury. Rafa Marin went to Napoli, and I think even the Castilla center back Jacobo Ramon is kind of injured. I'm not sure if he's back, but I do remember him getting injured. So that the situation is like that. Where do you put the blame? And is this something that we just have to get used to with
There's
Carvajal
no one to
playing as a
blame
center?
really. There's no one to blame, man. And the thing is, except the board, like up from uh, your squad and your managerial stuff, you can't really blame anyone, because I think Ancelotti must have asked for a centre back, considering we were after Euro, but the board didn't sign anyone. But that is just how it is, and we have to move on with it. And the season starts, we have only two available centre backs because Alaba's injured, and Vallejo just he doesn't seem to have that trust yet. Because even in the previous match, Militao was injured, but Vallejo doesn't come back. He doesn't come on. Uh, so Rudiger specifically is very physical, right? And the thing is, Militao is too similar to him,
Militao, I
and
think
that's
he
why,
has this tendency to just kind of get lost in the clouds sometimes. He loses his
yeah,
concentration.
he's very different. And to someone like Alaba, you want someone like Alaba anchoring the defense, and you want either of Militao or Rudiger playing with him. But that's unfortunately not the case. Speaking about tonight's makeshift defense, see, Carvajal. Firstly, I thought Chouameni should have played,
Hmm.
or at least by like Carvajal. You can't play right back as centre back and expect him to do the job, right? For 90 minutes,
But they,
45 minutes. The fact that Stuttgart didn't score was surprising to me, and the fact that they didn't exploit that enough was again
I mean,
surprising to me, because
if I can
crossing in
interrupt
from the
you,
right and scoring where Vasquez and Carvajal were, scoring headers from them, getting aerial like competitive with us, it was a no-brainer. But Stuttgart just they stuck to their game, and they always said they were going to stick to their game. But crossing from the right and challenging Carvajal in the air would have been a no-brainer, man, for me if I was Stuttgart tonight.
I'll just say this: like I think there were kind of a lot of situations where I felt like Carvajal kind of saved Madrid's bacon, because I think a lot of moments where we could have like conceded, Carvajal maybe got a foot in and deflected the ball, or he did something, he interrupted, he did something. This guy is like a wily old customer. Maybe he gets beaten for
Again,
pace, maybe he gets beaten for in the air, but he always knows how to position himself. He always knows
makes
how
up.
to make that one last tackle to
And
somehow.
if anything, it was the byproduct of removing him from his natural position, which was bringing Lucas Vasquez in. That hurt us more, right?
Yeah.
Vasquez's inability to like play on 1v1 defensive 1v1s, and inability to like come inside and create anything, any sort of like first pass. And if you notice, I think even Carvajal's the moment he switches back to right back, he plays that ball to Chouameni, who like he's immediately involved. I don't think it counts for anything, but he's immediately involved. And Vasquez, for all he does, he's only good enough, right? You keep having these conversations about Vasquez and like Ceballos or something like that. He can only do so much. So he only comes alive in like the final third, where he can do a couple step overs, go on the other side of the defender and put in a cross. But putting Carvalho back in his natural right back position was important. Uh, Again,
Definitely a
like I
game
said, he
changer.
shouldn't have been moved from there in the first place. But I'm glad Ancelotti realized that halfway into the game and moved him back.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of interesting to see the fact that Militao didn't start. Maybe it was Ancelotti sending the club a message that I'm not going to risk players because this is the only talent pool that I have. So
True.
him deciding to go with Carvajal, especially given the fact that Chouameni and Bellingham weren't like fully fit. So I definitely
Yeah.
think that definitely played a role why he didn't decide to put Chouameni in the center back position. He decided to stick with Carvajal. But like you said, for me as well, I remember reading on the social media from a respected Madrid account, and they said the same thing. They said Lucas Vasquez kind of felt like a black hole for where all Madrid attacks seemed to die, because whenever he
Mm.
would get the ball, it wouldn't go anywhere, and even if he got the ball in defense, it didn't exactly work out. So I kind of definitely agree with your point on him. But what did you think about Furlong Mendy? I think he kind of felt he did enough defensively, but going forward, he didn't offer much. I mean, that's to be expected. There
He
was this
never does.
yeah, there was this one ball where he felt over the top for Vinicius to chase, which I kind of felt was like pretty good. So I was kind of surprised. But then I've always had this feeling that Real Madrid definitely need to improve, upgrade on the left back position, because especially the team as it
Right.
is constructed right now doesn't really have any creativity in the midfield. Like
True.
maybe it has some, but it doesn't have the level that we used to. So maybe adding in fullbacks who can contribute, maybe somebody who can go play it both ways. Because once Ancelotti decides that he has to chase the game, he kind of has to bring on Fran Garcia. I mean, I love Fran
Mm.
Garcia, I love the kid, and I love his passion. But the fact that like he is somewhat limited, so Mendy doesn't really have a challenge in games like these to the starting position. And I think adding a fullback who could at least perform, offensively would help.
I
I
agree. Yeah.
would I would love to have your thoughts on this.
And obviously with the linked with Alfonso Davis for next year, which is always great. and I hope he does come eventually. Like, I don't know if it makes sense going in, because he's basically the same profile of fullback that Marcelo was,
Mm-hmm.
and you always need somebody to cover up behind that kind of player. So in today's game, it's a lot. It's an easier bet to start with a full-on Mendy,
Mm-hmm.
right, than to start with a Marcelo-esque like Davies, because even with Davies, Bayern, like, just they're too open far on the left side. He's great for everything that he does, uh, but Mendy, in fact, is limited in the inverse sense of that,
Mm-hmm.
where he doesn't offer you anything attacking wise. But Real Madrid said we can take that because we have Vinicius Junior, we have the best winger in the world in that left wing position. But we can take that, but we just need a reliable, left back who's just, even if he's like one sided, but we'll take that. Uh, and I think there's reports coming out of Spain now that he's being renewed. I don't know if it's been confirmed yet.
For Mendy, I think yeah, he's definitely
Yeah,
getting renewed. But yeah, I'll have to double check on the confirmation as well.
true.
Yeah, but I think you made some good points about the left back position. Although I don't agree with the Alfonso Davies Marcelo comparison, because I think Marcelo like levels above guys like Fonzie. But I mean,
No, I said pro is the same profile of player, not the same level. There's
I
a
mean,
difference.
I would disagree with that as well. But yeah, I kind
Okay,
of get
cool.
where you're coming from. But
Yeah,
honestly, like Fonzie has his own strengths. He's incredibly physical. He's incredibly direct, and I think he has some advantages. But I don't think personally that he fits what Real Madrid need. So, but then
Mm.
that's a
Yeah. There's
discussion.
always debates for that. I
Yeah,
agree.
that's going to be discussion that probably we're going to have in one of the international breaks when we don't really have anything to talk about.
Then again, there's this, you can have the same conversation about Mbappe also.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think once you mentioned that, we kind of have to go into it because today, before we go into it, I just want to highlight one of the comments that Sunayad made and said that this was like
Sure, sure.
Rudiger was kind of like this. Rudiger scores this goal against his old team in Stuttgart. So, and the funny thing is, he never actually scored for Stuttgart. So maybe he kind of hurt them because he never scored for them. And now this day, he takes away maybe a chance of getting a point from at the Bernabeu. For German teams, there was this interesting stat that I think in the last 14 matches when a German team has played its first game at the Bernabeu, like the first game at the Bernabeu, they have never actually won. Stuttgart kind of felt like in the first half that they did have a chance, but Real Madrid quickly extinguished that. Nothing was going to happen. So now that we have talked about defense, and I think we have talked a lot about defense, we kind of have to move into attack, and we kind of have to talk about Kylian
Sure,
Mbappe
yeah.
because you definitely brought him up. Kylian Mbappe today scored his like 49th goal in the Champions League all time, and now he entered like the top 10 and he equals Alfredo Di
Yeah, I think
Stefano.
he equaled or surpassed
He
Di
equaled
Stefano.
he equaled Alfredo Di Stefano. So
Yeah.
a Real Madrid legend, probably like depending on who you root for, maybe depending upon where your affiliation lies. If you are Florentino Perez, he's probably the greatest Real Madrid player ever, the greatest personality in Real Madrid's history ever. Maybe if you
Yep.
are one of the newer fans, you kind of want to put him at second and put Cristiano at first. But it's definitely a personal preference. Nobody's gonna get angry at you about that. But then
Mm.
the guy who equals him is Kylian Mbappe, and Kylian Mbappe was brought in like somebody said in the chat. He said he was brought in for like 100 million signing on bonus, 120 million, whatever that was. You'd be paying him like 30 million a year and everything. Do you think he has delivered on the performance, despite the fact that he kind of got a goal today?
Are you asking me if Mbappe's the money we're paying Mbappe is worth it for all
Have you
that
felt
he's?
satisfied with the performance that Mbappe has given so far, or do you want?
No, not to the levels that I know Mbappe's potential promises, right? But again, there's many layers to uncover there, where you can look at it from a fitness perspective. He's not really had a preseason. You can look at it from a positional perspective. He's not playing in his best position. He's playing in a new environment, and you can make all sorts of arguments against that. But it's just the fact for me that he's improving game after game that gives me that sort of optimism to say that okay, he's definitely scoring, and he's definitely being more and more involved in the teams, in everything good that this team does, and he's gelling in with Rodrigo, with Bellingham, at least not with Vinicius just yet, but I hope that happens soon. um, and when it does, when things do click, it will 100% feel like the the time the club spent going after Mbappe, and the money that they're now spending, paying him to play at this football club, is going to be worth it it's not just not quite there just yet.
So you are pretty optimistic about
I
Mbappe
am.
coming
Yeah,
Mbappe coming
yeah,
good, but yeah,
yeah.
definitely I kind of have to agree with you there. Not enough not enough performances so far that leaves me feeling that Mbappe is doing well, that Mbappe has arrived in Madrid. But he's definitely getting the odd goal or two sometimes. Maybe the penalties definitely help. Today we had a penalty situation that we probably want to discuss about maybe a little bit in the detail. There were two situations where I think we can talk about in the later on. But right now, I kind of think that Mbappe, that's good. That goal he scored, you've mentioned about it. That pass from Tchouaméni, that pass from Rodrigo into Mbappe, and finally getting him in the finish, it was like excellent. So I was pretty enthused about the goal. I kind of felt like this is kind of the goals that we can expect this Real Madrid team to score, because the strength is pace, the strength is transition, and once we get there right, that's gonna keep happening. But what worries me is the interaction between Vinicius and Mbappe, and I think that's something that has been on the mind of a lot of people. So what do you think about Vinicius and Mbappe's combination? You kind of mentioned that you think that will come. But for now, why do you think it's not working? Do you see any tactical reasons to maybe make some changes and see that maybe making
Mm.
these switches can make it work or maybe make it better? Or do you think it's like, maybe if you want to go into the conspiracy theories, maybe Vini's unsettled or something like that?
No, no, no. It's actually really. I look at it from a very like layman's basic point of view, right? Mbappe in exclusivity, in isolation from Vinicius, away from Vinicius, when he's combining with the likes of Valverde and with the likes of Bellingham or even Rodrigo, he's actually doing pretty well for himself, right? He's roaming around the area, linking with these players in midfield. His movement of the ball is pretty good now. He's finding himself like at the end of some pretty good chances. It's just that his finishing is not quite there, and his 1v1 play is not uh, the level we're used to seeing Mbappe play at. And again, we saw today some very clever runs being made. They don't always get the attention of our midfielders, but that'll definitely start happening more and more. The thing with Vinicius is that there's two things I've actually noticed in his game that just keep him from you know gelling with Mbappe and with Bellingham. Just I think I've mentioned one of them. It's that he isn't cutting in enough. Like he isn't starting from that left half space position, and he's starting out too wide.
Mm-hmm.
And every time he's one on one with a defender, it's apparent that his one abilities of like they're not the same level as they were the last season. You can even see that when he's playing for the Brazilian national team. The other thing is that he's starting too deep, and I know he's done that in previous seasons. But when Mbappe he's playing with the last defender and he's playing on the shoulder of the last defender, Vinicius is at the half line, at the halfway line. So that's one of the reasons. The distance between those two players, you can look at the team's formation, and you can say that okay, fine, the two players that are very close to each other. But essentially, when you look at the team actually play off the ball, they're not very close to each other. They're not coming into the same vicinity, right? As maybe a Benzema and a Mbappe, or a Benzema and a Vinicius back in the day. So Vinicius, these two things in his game that are just not uh, taking him to the levels that we're used to seeing of him.
Yeah, I think Vinicius
Will
definitely.
definitely come. Just I suppose just wait on it. It'll take
Yeah,
a while.
I think I've also I kind of agree with the things that you're saying about Vinicius, but I've also felt like he's maybe not as involved as he used to be last season, especially
Hmm.
because last season Vinicius had a tendency to take the game by the neck. He would always try and make things happen, but this season he kind of doesn't seem like that. And certain decisions that he's making, I've not been, I've kind of been surprised because Vinicius, like, when you look at Vinicius, when you think about Vinicius, especially from last season, you're thinking like coming into this season, this Vinicius guy, he's wearing the number 7. He's going to be the leader of the Real Madrid attack. But that evolution hasn't happened, especially given the fact that I think, for me, although he was playing in midfield, Toni Kroos dictated a lot of the play that Real Madrid did. I mean, he's playing the midfield, so obviously that's going to happen. But even in the attack, he was kind of contributing a lot, by combining with players in the final third and making things happen. And this season, we
True.
thought Mbappe is going to come and be that fourth player or fifth player in the attack, and things were going to run smoothly. But I have seen a lot of times that Vinicius or Mbappe or whoever has the ball tends to get isolated. The
Yeah.
opponent teams are quickly, they're able to regroup and they build a wall around whoever has the ball. Even when Mbappe was getting the ball in the final third, everybody was able to just close down the guy because they know that pass is not coming. They know that the pass between
And yeah,
Vinicius
they're
and
very
Mbappe.
selfish in the final third usually,
Yeah,
even when we thrive.
Yeah, for me, that thing is what worries me, and I kind of feel like, because of this, Real Madrid aren't performing well, and there have been a lot of times when I kind of felt like in the final third, attackers are playing like, they're having poor touches or something like that. Especially Vinicius and Mbappe. I think Rodrigo not so much, because Rodrigo, like we said, like had been pretty
That's his
good
game,
today.
yeah.
Had been pretty good today, but like these two guys haven't really delivered on that. So for me, that is something that worries me. And I kind of want to know your take on this. Like, do you think there's a tactical switch that we can make happen so that this thing goes away, or is time is the only thing that's going to help this?
The only possible thing that comes to my mind is the 4-4-2 that we deployed against Man City last season,
Mm-hmm.
where Vinicius and I think Rodrigo played up front, and then Jude was behind. It was a very like compact shape, and it was not something Ancelotti would ever do game in game out. But in a big Champions League game, say, are we playing away at Liverpool or at home?
I think we are away at Liverpool. I'm not 100% sure though.
Say away at Liverpool, we might actually do something like that. But for now, within the constraints of this 4-3-3 and how we've seen things develop so far in the season, I feel like things from either end have to change. If Vinicius offers himself more to Mbappe, or if Mbappe comes more in the vicinity of where Vinicius offers himself and makes himself available, I think then we might see a little bit of them, linking up. Right now, what we're saying is the exact opposite of that. The distance I've already mentioned there, even when they're actually thriving, even when Vinicius occasionally twice or thrice in the game he turns on the afterburners and he races past the defender, he's only thriving in exclusivity. He's not combining with anyone there. Mbappe, he does something, he does an elastic or a couple step overs, cuts in and takes a shot. That's an individual effort, and the lack of combining, if anything,
Mm-hmm.
is it's a bit concerning, and you're right about that. But again, I'm an optimist when it comes to these things. And it's just two great players that you're waiting for them to click, and hopefully they do in the right time. It's just not there quite yet. If anything, the most I said this on the last podcast. If the most amount of like chemistry we've seen between them two is when Vinicius gave his penalty to Mbappe.
I mean, that's definitely an interesting thing to say, but yeah, I kind of seem to. I mean, I don't have any other response other than to agree with the fact that probably that is the highest amount of chemistry that I've seen between them two, and I think they want to make it work. I don't believe this conspiracy that they don't like each other or anything like that, because from what I've seen on social media, I definitely agree that Vinicius and Mbappe are trying to make it work, but for some reason it's not happening. On the bright side, whenever I've seen Mbappe, play with somebody he has chemistry with, because I felt that initially in the first half, he gets the ball at the edge of the box, and then, Tchouaméni kind of pulls himself back and opens up that space, and Mbappe quickly recognizes that and plays that ball. The shot doesn't come off, and we didn't score off of it, but that was for me, and a high point, because I kind of felt like when Mbappe kind of starts understanding the team better, when he kind of starts gelling with everybody around him better, things are going to click. And I think individually all of these attackers have been pretty good, and all of them have shown that they have the skills at the talent. Maybe Mbappe needs to improve with his first touch and everything. I don't quite know what the reason for that is, because Mbappe, like every time I've seen him before, he hasn't had these same issues. But the thing is, this guy, his body of work speaks for itself, so we kind of have to trust in him and see how it goes. But I think we will move on into the comments, and we will definitely talk about Endrick and the goal that he scored, and like Sunet said, the short power glitch that he used. But before we do that, let's go into an ad break and see what Doris has cooked up for us.
Sure.
All evangelistas, if you've ever wondered how you can help and support this channel and project of ours, I'm here to remind you we've partnered up with Manscaped, so you can go to their website, use our code LBR20 to get 20% off and free shipping worldwide. That's code LBR20 to get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. So whether you're bald, you want to be bald, or you are in the process of balding, because this season is already helping with that, I have a new thing for you. It's called the Dome Shaver Pro. It is a trimmer that helps you, shave your head. It is ergonomic. It has blades that come together and apart at the angle that you want to shave. It is very easy to use. It is fully waterproof. You can use it in the shower, easy to clean. It has a flex adjust technology, like I said, where blades come together at a part. It's very comfortable to shave your head. Dome Shaver Pro is also equipped with a high performance 9500 RPM motor, which means no matter how your battery life is over time, the motor will always be efficient and fully working. And speaking of battery life, it has an hour and a half in its life or battery, so it means that you can take it on a trip fully charged. It will still be charged when you get there. It also has a lock on the battery, so if you travel and you're scared that maybe the trimmer will turn on or something, it will lock it so that never happens. Plus it helps, save battery life. You can also get the Dome Shaver aftershave lotion. It has aloe vera, colloidal oats and gotu cola. It helps calm and nourish the skin after shaving. Plus it has a fresh green like woods scent that's subtle and refreshing. So yeah, use code LBR20 to get 20% off and free shipping. That's called LBR20 to get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Doris, for that wonderful ad that we had. Make sure you listen to the woman. Go to manscaped.com, get the products, and support us. Hopefully, you like the products that you buy. Hopefully, you enjoy the products that you buy, enjoy using them, and they help you out and in whatever endeavors you're using them for. But coming back to the podcast, coming back to the topic of the podcast, I said that we're going to get into some of the comments, and now we're going to do that. So I think we had Path of Musa. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm pretty sure I'm going to butcher it, but bear with me. I think Path of Musashi. Yeah, he says, "Hey, Mo, the presenter. No pressure, amigo." I mean, I thank you for the support. Hopefully, I've done a decent job. I mean, I definitely cannot live up to Suned or, Jacob, but I'm trying my best. Sharik says dodge the bullet somehow, and I think this was something that you were referring to as well during the ad break, Sahel. You kind of mentioned that Stuttgart had a brilliant game. Like Stuttgart played maybe if not brilliant, they had a pretty good game. What do you say about this?
No, I'd go as far as to say brilliant. Apart from the finishing, and they hit the post once, which again reminded me of the Sociedad game. It wasn't as bad of a 3-post thing, but. No, see, I've mentioned things about German teams again, and again they come to the Bernabeu and they rattle us with a performance like this. And it's a very German team thing to do. And in itself, it's a very young coach, I think, playing for the first time in the Champions League against a very, very experienced side, probably as experienced as you can get, right? A team in the Champions League. So props to them, man, to come here and to play a brave game as good as well as they did, and to rattle us in some aspects of it in the first half. The second half, definitely they had to take a backseat after we scored, and then they hit back definitely because they leveled it, right? They leveled the game. It wasn't the way they would have expected it, because again it was the most difficult chance they had so far. And even after that, I felt like they could have, gone on and continued to put the pressure on us. But those last 25 minutes at the Bernabeu in a Champions League game, any team would, be afraid to put the pressure on Real Madrid. So Stuttgart looking ahead, I feel like, again, this Champions League format, they have 7 more games. I don't know who they're facing, but yeah, props to them, man. They can go back with their heads held high.
I think a great man once said 90 minutes at the Bernabeu was a very long time, and I think today we saw the perfect example of that. Stuttgart had a pretty brilliant game, like you said, and full credit to them. I think they have a bright future if they keep on doing this, although they don't seem to have started pretty well. They lost some key players, but teams definitely tend to increase their levels try and play to their best when they're coming at the Bernabeu, and I think they definitely should, because this is one of the biggest stages in the world, if not the biggest stage. For me, it's the biggest stage in world football. When you come in, as a player, you get a chance to play the Bernabeu. You definitely want to give your best, and I mean, Stuttgart definitely did that today. Maybe not to our benefit, but definitely speaks well to them if they can keep this level going. Let's see what happens to them in the future games. And I think
just to remind you, Stuttgart's goal, more their goal from the corner, Mendy loses his marker.
yeah,
So again, we speak of his reliability, but he's not very reliable from things like aerial challenges and set pieces marking, is he?
yeah,
So there's certainly aspects to his game that are at the very least questionable. But because he has that thing of reliability and around him, and he has this record where we haven't lost home games with him in so many years. Yeah, just to remind you of that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had this conversation, me and Jacob, a little while back, where we talked about Furlan Mendy potentially playing as center back, and I said the same thing. He's pretty good, but when it comes to aerial defending, when it comes to positioning for cross and everything, that guy is pretty poor. So as a center back, I don't really see him working out. So and I think that's the reason why Ancelotti always prefers to play somebody like Carvajal in a center back position instead of Furlan Mendy. So and there you go, Sahel. You kind of have made an excellent point about how he missed his the person he was marking, and that goal by Denis Undav came about. But then I think moving on from one left back to another, and I think there was a comment by Milon. He says, also side note, been very impressed with Fran's cameos this season. Very underrated cameos. Like, what do you think, Sahel? Do you share that opinion with him?
I do, and he's always very eager to get on the ball and overlap and make a cross. Again, you can make you can make an argument for his game being one-sided or whatever, but I don't care, man. He's young, and last season he showed signs of like nervousness. As good as he was in phases, he never really seemed to, continue with that when given the starts. And we've seen that. I think he started once this season, but no, he hasn't. He hasn't started.
I think he did start when Furlan Mendy was suspended.
Yeah, right. Second game. Sorry,
Yeah.
Second game he started when Mendy got the red card. So I like to see more of that, and you can expect what you know of Fran. His strengths and his weaknesses are pretty distinguishable. But I hope he continues to grow as a player with these little cameos, and those cameos will soon, maybe in a Copa del Rey game, maybe somewhere in a La Liga game, from a 10-minute cameo to maybe a 20-25-minute cameo. I would love to see more of Fran.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Fran, when he was at Rayo, was one of their best players, and maybe in the first season the pressure got to him a little. But then I still think that if Fran Garcia, especially based on the performance that we have seen so far at Madrid, he doesn't seem to strike me as somebody who can go on and be a starter for Madrid. I think he's going to be a backup. He's going to be second choice left back. Maybe we get a good offer for him. Maybe we could get some money, because I remember reading in the summer that Bournemouth were in for him. They just didn't match what Real Madrid wanted, so he stayed on.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you definitely have a point. Maybe with more chances, he goes on developing. And
the thing is, I noticed, I noticed this one thing of him today, and I just say it because I've read it. I've just read it off the notes I've made. He was very combative in a couple of the 50-50s, and we've not seen that of him before. He's very nervous and reserved in that sense. He is always willing to show his marker the other side of the ball and let him take him on 1v1. But today he was in a couple of the challenges that we saw. He was combative, and I think it's visible that he's grown physically. He seems stronger than before, more well built. So I think that's one case to make with Fran. He's improving that side of the game that he's not well known for.
Definitely. I think even Fran Garcia, when he's coming through Castilla, there was a lot of talk about him being brilliant going forward, but his defensive side was lacking. And I think in this time we've definitely seen that he needs to get better in decision making in the final third. So hopefully these two areas, and like you said, physically he's growing. We kind of expected big things from him when he came in. So I hope that he can go on from here and build on from what the platform that he's setting. But moving on, there's another comment from Milon.
Endrick.
We will come to Endrick, but there's another comment from Milon, and I think I just want to make everybody know that I'm not favoring him, but he seems to have a lot of comments. But he says, with the talent level we have, Cruz, we shouldn't be with the talent level we have, Cruz shouldn't be missed. What is your take on this?
Can you repeat that?
He said, with the talent level that we have currently in the team, Cruz shouldn't be that big of a miss.
I mean, it's kind of a very shallow statement to make. I'm sorry, Miran, but the we can certainly match the level at which Real Madrid used to play with these players, because they have the talent and they have the potential to, break through as forerunners for this like modern day game that Real Madrid are looking to play. But the brand of football that we associated with ourselves when we like, not, I know, again, not a brand of football, but like sort of this pattern that we associated with ourselves when we played with Cruz is just invisible now without him. And Cruz is the kind of player you only miss when he's gone, right? You don't notice him as much when he's on the pitch, but when he's gone, you take like the essential cog out of that puzzle. And that's what is happening with us in games right now. We lack control. We lack that sort of momentum, that rhythm that takes us over the edge and gives us at least a control-wise advantage over any other team in world football. Uh, and that's just not there. These guys, Kamavinga, Bellingham, say Valverde, as technically proficient as they are as football players, uh, I just don't think they're the same kind. I'm not speaking about levels. They're not the same kind of footballer that Toni Kroos was.
Yeah, definitely. I think we will have to spend a long time if you want to find out a player of the similar ilk of the Toni Kroos.
Yeah,
So
man.
that's
I can talk about this for hours and end.
yeah, definitely. And I think Milon kind of made a second point in the statement that I kind of felt was loaded, and maybe we don't want to spend too much time on the podcast because he was talking about changing formations from last season that worked. We're going with a different formation. So I think that's definitely down to the fact that, we have Mbappe now, and last season we didn't, and we kind of have to figure out how to play Vinicius, Mbappe, and Rodrigo, them together. But then this is a loaded subject. You definitely, if you
The
want.
experiments will continue. We're not playing the same formation every game.
Yeah, and definitely, I remember reading in Marca, I think, over the weekend, where they said that Ancelotti might potentially look at a change of formation again. So we'll see what happens. The season is long. This is only the start. Maybe it's like we're like 1/10 or maybe something like that through the season. So there's a long time to go. But moving on, I think Ashik kind of had like one of our regulars. So hello to Ashik. He kind of made an interesting point. We were discussing about Liverpool, and we said we weren't sure where we were playing, but it says like we are away at Anfield. It's like playing at the Valdebebas. Anfield may be intimidating to everyone, but there's a Real Madrid. This isn't everyone. Liverpool also knows after the 5-2 spanking. Are you as confident as Ashik going to the game against Liverpool at Anfield?
I mean, with the start of this season that we've had, not really, but like, again, he makes a point. We've always done well when we've gone away at Anfield. Mostly well, actually. We held a goalless draw 3 years ago when Zidane was in his final season, right? I think Vinicius or something started right back at that in that game. Yeah, I remember that particularly. But we always seem to do well against Liverpool. We've won a couple Champions League finals off them, and even away at Anfield. So again, but the only thing that is keeping me from agreeing to that fully is the fact that we've started the season in a very shaky manner, and with the team that they've got, again, it's no Mane, Firmino, and Salah. It's no like, they don't have the Fabinhos, and Van Dijk is probably, I think he's like 32 now. So
yeah,
they don't have the team that they used to have under Klopp, but they're always a threat, man. You can't count them off.
Yeah, definitely. Van Dijk might be going up in years, but actually, you should know that he scored against Milan today. So, and
they came back from 1-0 down.
Yeah, they came back from 1-0 down to win 3-1. And I think my first memory of Real Madrid versus Liverpool is actually not a good one. I believe it was in the season that Guardiola first came, and Liverpool kind of thrashed us at Anfield 4-0, and then they even won at the Bernabeu 1-0. So definitely not good memories for me. Although since then I don't seem to remember us losing to them. But yeah, I mean, I would always be cautious about talking smack about Liverpool at Anfield. But then moving on, I think Prince Arthur had an interesting comment. I don't want to entertain the first part, but then the second part was that we can get to see the power of Endrick. He was talking about Endrick, and I think talking about Endrick is something that we wanted to do. So I think this sets up a good segue for us. Sahil, what did you think about Endrick? Recently he got married or something. So maybe he had some extra adrenaline flowing through his veins. He seemed pretty excited. He comes on and scores a brilliant worldie. What has your overall assessment of this, Bobby Charlton region been?
I feel like he always has, like, he's always going to have some amount of pressure now on him now that he's at Real Madrid. And we saw him smash the bottom corner in his first La Liga game, and now we've seen him better that from like 30 yards out. And we didn't expect that, he had Mbappe to his left and he had Vinicius, I think, to his other side. We didn't expect him to go for goal, but the kind of confidence you have to go for goal from there, I think that it says a lot about his character and his mentality. I just hope he continues getting those minutes.
Were you expecting these sort of performances from Endrick when you saw him in the preseason? Because for me personally, I kind of felt like he had some ways to go, especially when we saw him play in the preseason and combine the teammates. I didn't see this coming, but then since the season has begun and every time he's got an opportunity, he has showed us something different. He's definitely shown why Real Madrid spent like close to 72 million euros if you include all the taxes and everything.
Right. See, you can talk about performance, but again, we've not really seen that on the kind of scale that we want to see at Madrid. We haven't seen him start a game, right? A competitive game. And I think he still falls into that category of players who will perform and who will continue to perform well off the bench, like Brahim Diaz or Fran Garcia. But the moment you start Endrick, you will start, and it's not to say that he isn't a great player. It's just that he's not at that level, right? You will start to see him like not be present in the game, and so to protect him is probably why Ancelotti won't start him for a while, and it'll take a lot of these cameos for him to earn that start. But when he does it, I'm sure he will have earned it.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with you when you say that Endrick has some ways to go to growing. Maybe, hopefully, he does that he does that with time. We saw Vinicius. He took some time to get there. There were some, nice performance at the beginning, but definitely that final product wasn't there. And then once he exploded, what an explosion that it has been. 2 Champions Leagues, 2 league titles. I mean, what more can you ask for? But then I think to finish off, there's only a couple of things that we probably need to discuss. We've touched most of the things, but final thoughts on how did you rate Ancelotti and his game management today, his game plan today, and maybe his substitutions?
I think everybody was happy with the lineup, man, because Bellingham was back and Tchouameni was back. It's just the defense that shook me up, because playing Carvalho at defense and centre back, it's just leaves too many unanswered questions, because then you have Vasquez. Carvalho at centre back is not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the Vasquez at right back, and the sort of unreliable player that Vasquez is. I was shaking that, but again, like I said, Stuttgart didn't exploit that as much as they should have. And once Vasquez was off, Militao came to centre back and Carvalho went to right back, and then that was fine. Ancelotti overall, I said this a couple podcasts ago, I think, that he has sort of taken in what a lot of the media and the fans have to say, that he isn't making substitutions enough, or he isn't allowing enough bench players minutes, and he's sort of taken that into account, and he's obviously now using that bit of advice or whatever. He isn't it isn't to say that he will not stick to one approach or whatnot, but it's definitely good to see that open-minded side of him, and it's not a 1-game thing or a 2-game thing. It's been happening for 3 or 4 games now. So yeah, that part of it is very good to see. And the formation argument, that discussion is it's a long one in its own, so let's not go there. But, the 4-3-3 is standard, and you can sort of bet on it with 3 out of 4 times. But going into the season, and as the season progresses, that argument will also take shape, that 4-3-3, or maybe we switch back to the diamond. All of that will come into consideration. But for now, I'm kind of satisfied with the way Ancelotti is handling it, and he even left some space open for maybe the youngsters to come through. Because the end of last game, when he was asked about Militao's injuries, he actually said that we might have to rotate our centre back partnership soon. And I actually took it as, okay, maybe the academy player is coming up. I didn't expect Carvalho to be playing centre back. But
Sahil, you've been watching Ancelotti for 4 years now. You should be expecting this. Farouk, this is exactly what Farouk would tell you if he was here.
No, that is one way to look at it. But because he's defied the odds, and we didn't expect him to make as many substitutions as he's making right now, right? Because he never did that for a long time, and even switching formations, things like that, making the odd change in the team, starting Arda Güler, starting Brahim Diaz. Was he going to do that last season? No.
Definitely,
But
you make some good points there, and I think Ancelotti has shown as
he's
much as
open-minded enough.
as much as Farouk wouldn't agree. I think, like you said, Ancelotti has definitely shown some ability to be flexible, whereas previously he used to be pretty a big stickler for consistency. Now he seems to be open to making some changes and being a little bit flexible. But then last thing, I think you touched upon this as well. You said that you were scared about like the way the defense lined up, and I think we kind of touched upon it, but we didn't really go into detail. But then we have to give props to Thibaut Courtois. I mean, what a brilliant performance it was, and I think you mentioned in the outbreak that we haven't done justice to him. So the floor is
The
yours,
defense
Sahil.
didn't do justice to him, man.
Yeah, so the floor is yours. Talk about Thibaut Courtois.
Was it 4 saves or 5 saves in the beginning?
I think it was
minutes?
5.
Just 15 minutes. Yeah, that in itself is a pretty shocking stats because he goes so many games this season not having made even 3 saves, and then there's these games where he's just brought into action all of a sudden, and that like switch, that shift in like I don't know what the word for it is, but the contrast at which he's brought to action.
Mm-hmm.
You can again, last season it was Lunin, and this season it's Courtois. At Real Madrid, there's just plenty of chaos. Some games in the season, and some games of the season you just have nothing to do. So yeah, props to him, man. He's just always been reliable past 4 years, and even being, I think, later in the game between minutes 45 and 60, he was tested another 2 or 3 times when Stuttgart turned up the heat again after our goal. So he's just, what more can you say about the best keeper in the world?
Definitely best keeper in the world. I think that's the thing everybody needs to remember. This is the best keeper in the world. There was some disrespect to it.
Again, Lunin has signed an extension.
Yeah, Lunin has signed an extension, but I think when with Courtois in this sort of form, Lunin has to wait for his chances. One day it will come. I mean, Lunin, please don't get worried too much. I'm definitely sure that Ancelotti is going to give you this new version of Ancelotti is definitely give you a run out in the Copa del Rey. So I'm hoping he gets his chances. But then there was some worry about how Courtois was going to cope with coming back from an ACL, but that's a big injury, so everything. But then so far, Courtois, his performances have spoken for himself, and this guy has like evolved from what he was at Chelsea. He's even gotten better with his feet. He had that moment where he kind of shimmied the opponent and got the ball away from them. So that was something that I really liked. And Courtois, as always, is dependable when he's playing. Defenders know that they have somebody behind them that is gonna protect their mistakes and protect them from whatever happens. So I think definitely Courtois was brilliant today and a deserved man of the match, like you said. But then I think now we can start wrapping it up. It was pretty. We go out of this game with maybe some good sensations, some not so good sensations. Happy about Rodrigo, happy about Bellingham and Tchouaméni being back, happy about Militao getting the second half performance, happy about how Carvajal played as right back, maybe certain disadvantages as well, like you mentioned, maybe the midfield probably we kind of need to get better in transition. Mbappe, Vinicius still needs to work out, things need to improve there. Maybe Fulham Mendy needs to get better in the air, although I'm not really expecting. I don't hold out my breath for that.
You can't expect now.
Yeah, but then Stuttgart definitely had a great performance, and to sum it up, I think to conclude, I would just read out Ashik's comments where he said Stuttgart is known for manufacturing Benz and Porsche. They came in like Benz and play like Porsche. But at the Bernabeu, Real Madrid is a Formula 1 car, and that shit don't fly here. So overall, pretty satisfying performance. Real Madrid definitely deserving the win, I think, because maybe we didn't start off well, and Stuttgart had their chances, but then we buried them. And at the end of the day, football is all about burying your chances. So, Sahil, any final thoughts before we maybe thank the sponsors and end this show?
Sure, no. Like I said, Champions League night at the Bernabeu, always special. Leaves you with good feelings when it ends, especially when Madrid win. And we're gonna have 3 more of these till the knockouts start. New format, Champions League. Again, we're not big fans of it. I'm sure you aren't either, but we have to accept it and we have to enjoy it because different teams. And who are we playing next?
I'm not exactly sure. You've put me on the spot here. But I think we have a game against Dortmund, we're playing against Milan, we're playing against Salzburg, all of those, Atlanta and all those teams. So it's definitely going to be interesting thing.
You've got to look forward to those amazing matches. And for now, I think we return back to domestic football. A lot of games coming on the way.
Yeah, definitely. And all of them are going to be covered on Let's Be Real before you guys get worried.
Yes, they will. So 3-1 on the night. Nothing more to say except, I guess, get well soon, Sunaid.
Yeah, definitely get well soon, Sunat, and you can come back and take this hot seat of yours, and start doing all of these intros and outros that you do so brilliantly. I'm gonna try my hat again one of the outros today. So before we go, I just want to thank all the sponsors, Manscaped, Fanatics, and especially don't want to forget the guys who helped us out at the beginning, Madrid committee. All of their links are in the description. Make sure that you guys go and support them, so you keep benefiting us. And these things have helped us grow, and I hope your support can help us keep growing. Make sure that you come on YouTube and watch our shows, interact with us in the comments, because this interaction is the thing that keeps us going, and this is the feature of this podcast that sets it apart from everybody else. So I think if we have nothing else to add, I would like to bid you guys adieu over here. So from me and from Sahel, this is us signing off. Hala Madrid.
Hello, Madrid, guys.